Hey everybody. So we are getting ready to dive into our West direction deep dive here for the next 5 to 6 days. We're going to go into each topic and just explore it a little bit from the concept of the medicine wheel and see how we can change our lives, really, and to grow ourselves into the best version of ourselves that we possibly can. So I'm here in the Olympic National Park, and what a beautiful place. It's gentle here. It really feels very ancient and very appropriate for the topic today, which is transformation. And in my earlier video, I talked a lot about how we look at our external world in relationship to our internal world. And if you missed that video, make sure you go back and watch the introduction. It gives you a little bit of meat of what the West Direction is really all about, and kind of dovetails with what we're going to be talking about in the next 5 to 6 units that we're going to do. So the first thing that we really must do, in my mind, is to take an assessment of where are we, what have we manifested in our life as a result of the seeds that we planted back in the East direction, whether that was 20 years ago or 2 months ago. But we look at our life from the prism of every facet that we can, and we take an assessment of what needs to be transformed now. And in that transformation phase, when we look at what needs to be transformed, we're looking at really what new seeds do I need to plant, what things need to kind of disappear or die off or shift or morph in my life in order to make room for that new. And whenever we take something away from ourselves, we have to replace that with something new. So if, for example, in the West direction, we deal a lot with the physical body and health and addictions and things like that. And if you have an imbalance in the West direction and you tend to fall into that category of being addicted, whether it's to TV, alcohol, drugs, sex, addicted to helping other people. I mean, there are 1,000 different addictions that we can fall into. If you take that addiction away, you've got to fill that space with something new, or you're just going to fall back into that old pattern of being addicted. You're going to find a new addiction or a new something to focus yourself on where you're not having to focus inward. If you remember, we're working with the medicine wheel, and in the north direction, we have the, I'm going to walk so that this puppy can walk with me. When we go into the north direction, we've got that space where we go within ourselves. And in that place, we start to cultivate the garden that we're going to create going forward. So if you are faced with addictions, and you have relied on these facets to fill that void, and you don't refill it with something positive, you don't birth something new in your life, then when you go into the north direction and you're facing that void, it's going to be really, really uncomfortable. And a lot of times that's when we will experience the dark night of the soul. I have to duck here. There's a tree. So again, looking at transformations, we look at all the different variable pieces of our life, our relationships, our job, the space we live in, the spiritual path that we have chosen to walk, our spiritual practices, our relationship to not only those who are close to us and our family, but we also look at relationships in the context of how am I in relationship with the environment? How am I in relationship with strangers, with my animals? And we take a really honest assessment. And ironically, the honest assessment is sometimes hard for people because they don't want to be judged. But in this assessment that we're going to do for this course, you are the one who is the only witness to your process. And so there is no judgment from other people. And we've got to give ourselves that room to really be authentic and to be allowed to show up as raw and as unencumbered as we possibly can. So when you do this assessment, I'm going to provide you a PFD or PFD, that's if we were kayaking. I'm going to provide you a PDF, and you can download that to take this assessment. If you're watching this on YouTube, you will need to join our private Facebook group to get that download. And when you do this PDF, when you do this assessment, I want you to find a space. Since we're in the west direction, I want you to create a sacred space for yourself. So you do what you need to do to make that sacred, whether it's to sit in meditation or to go out into nature, light a candle, light some incense, play with the senses a little bit, and then take that time and allow yourself allow yourself the freedom to take whatever time it takes to really get honest, to really get real, and to be with the uncomfortableness. It's hard to admit that we're addicted. It's hard to admit that we're in a relationship that is not healthy. It's hard to admit these things. But until you get real with that, it's not going to change. And I've seen many people come into the mentorship who kind of have gotten to that place where, it's now or never. Either I change my life now, or I'm just going to be stuck in this rut, this monkey wheel forever. And so it's it's about getting really present with that and what that means and what that looks like. And sometimes it's really difficult to make those changes. Actually, it's not difficult to make the changes as much as it is to admit what needs to be changed. And so getting really present with that, to get really real and honest, and to see it from all the different angles. That's one of the most important things, I think, is in this process, is allowing yourself to really be focused and driven and present and compassionate towards yourself, and that honesty. And so as we do this, as you make these assessments and you start seeing, wow, I've got these things that I really need to change. I've got these places in my life that I really need to lean into and shift. I've been unconscious for however long. This is a little tangent here, but one other thing that I see is that in an effort to fill that void that we sometimes find ourselves in, I see that people will dive into a spiritual practice, Reiki, yoga, shamanic work, whatever it is, and they dive in, and they use that as their distraction without ever really getting to the core issue of what took you to that place to begin with. What seed did you plant that manifested that emptiness inside? And without looking through that lens and just pushing yourself outward and being in the world external and not internal, it creates this buffer, but it's not real. You're not going to be able to go deep with that practice. You're not going to be able to sustain that for very long. There's always going to be, that moment that pops up that moves you out of that really feel-good bubble and forces you to look at something that can be really not fun to look at. And because there's not the consciousness of the birth of the origin of that incident, then we flounder, and we then push ourselves outwards even more. We dive deeper into a spiritual practice, or we we drink more, we find more distractions, we find more people that need our help. And so I hope I'm making sense here. It's like we're making that conscious effort to move ourselves out of an unconscious state that sometimes we are not conscious that we're in that unconscious state. And without that knowledge, we just spin the wheel. And so taking this assessment and admitting, where we might not want to admit some of the things that we have used or done or are, or whatever it might be, that's the first step. And the awareness in my mind is essential. And sometimes awareness is all you need to move past something. Sometimes awareness is the first step. Sometimes the awareness comes when we're at our rock bottom. Sometimes it comes when you do a workshop like this and somebody says, hey, let's really take an honest look at what we've got going on. And so it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be, long and drawn out. It just has to be real and honest. One of the examples that I can give you is that if you grew up in a household where this was something that I struggled with, actually. I lived in a home where I had two working parents, and my brother and sister were much older than me. So for most of my childhood, when I came home from school, I was alone, and I spent a lot of years alone. I was, I had some friends in school, but I was bullied, and so my, which way am I going? Oh dear. I'm in a fork in a road. There's like 3 paths. I think I'll go this way. Who knows? See, I was not aware. I was not paying attention to what path I was on. So the result of that was a seed that planted and instilled in me a sense of independence and abandonment issues. And so those two things kind of percolated, and they got nurtured because that was the seed that I planted, or got planted in me. And as I went through my life, I nurtured them by creating or getting into relationships that the person was emotionally unavailable, or I couldn't let down my guard enough to allow somebody into my internal world, and so I had that protective layer. I was too independent. And so this played out for a long time in my life, and there's a lot of things that I could have turned to, and probably did to an extent, but it wasn't until I made that correlation of my childhood and how I grew up and the seeds that got planted with what I really needed to embrace and change and look at and accept and forgive. And I had a conversation years ago with my mom, and we talked about her working and things like that, and there were things that I didn't understand as a child. How could I have? I was very young. And she was just trying to do what she needed to do for herself and for the family. And so here was this moment of clarity for me, of awareness, that said, this is, you take off that fog, you clear the fog, you clean the mirror, and you say, this is the truth of that situation. But when we're in it, we don't really see that truth. We make up the story as we go that's going to fit the narrative that we have for our life. And so once I had that awareness, I was able to look at it and say, this isn't who I want to be. I want to be in a relationship where I am honored and cherished, and that I can be close with somebody, and that I can really lean into them and they can lean into me. I want that intimacy. And to do that, I have to be vulnerable. And to do that, I have to be less independent. And I've got to let go of my fear of abandonment. And so then came in, well, to let go of my fear of abandonment, I need to be really okay with being by myself. And so then it all kind of spiraled out of there. It came down to self-love. And so that's how you can kind of trace back these seeds once you have this awareness of, oh, there's chicken of the woods, mushrooms. I'm not climbing down there to get it. Anyway, that's kind of a nutshell version of kind of what we experience and what we go through in finding our soul, and really, raising the awareness and getting real and being present and finding out what is the story that I created, what's the narrative that I created to nurture that seed that may not have been a seed that I wanted. And so right now we're doing two things. We're harvesting what we have sowed, and we are also going to till the soil to get ready for the north so that we can start cultivating the seeds that we want to create. So download the assessment and take the time, create your sacred space, take the time to do this assessment, get really real and honest with yourself. And if you need to get more clarity like I did with my mom, and that's possible for you, then do it. There's no better time to work on your soul than right now. And so yeah, this is where we start. And if you are watching this again on YouTube, go to the Facebook group to get the download, or just go through each area of your life and make an assessment. And if you're on the website, the download will be down below. And so if you are not on Facebook and want to get it from the website, you can do that as well. And in the comments below, what I would love to know from you guys is what, if you're willing to share, what unconscious part of yourself did you discover? And let's just start that conversation right there. And then we'll go into the next 4 or 5 days. We're going to do this very quickly. This group will actually be up, and these videos will be up for about a week after, maybe 2 weeks after we finish. And it's not meant to be here forever for you to participate in it. We are going to remove them. And that's just because we want you to do the work right now. And we want you to be present in this group right now. And we're getting ready to open up the mentorship in 3 weeks, and then the focus will go there for those people. So while you have me right now in this beautiful forest that looks like Avatar with a dog who really wants to run, she is just pulling me along this trail. So get ready, and let's just do this. And I look forward to seeing what you guys write down below. Bye, guys.